What happens at Grandma's stays at Grandma's is a model for you and your grandkids. If it's fun, it's fair game. But lately, hip pain has you grimacing more than laughing. And that's the moment you realize life's too short to put off treatment any longer.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for orthopedic care, with hundreds of joint replacements each year. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better. The Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This podcast is brought to you by Sway, artfully crafted, ready-to-drink cocktails from Mad Tree Brewing. This is episode 776, listener Q&A with Matt Kasee.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This podcast with Amanda Valentine.
What up, homies? Before I get into this fantastic conversation with Matt, answering your questions, got some really good answers in here too. I want to talk to you about Sarah and Team Fit With Me, who has been my health coach since 2020, who's been a part of this podcast for a long time, who's coming to the Pound This party in Cincinnati in August. I'll get to that in a second. But if you're like, dang it, you know what? I need somebody to help keep me accountable, maybe teach me more about nutrition, macros, want to know about like what physical activity I should be doing, whether your goal is weight loss or it's you want to gain strength or you just want to feel better in your own body. Maybe you have issues like PCOS or gut health conditions or hormonal dysfunction. I mispronounced that word, but you know what I meant. Then Sarah can help with all of those things. She has an entire team. Also got to give a shout out to Jeanette, who is her mindset coach, who's also been my mindset coach over the past several months, who is amazing. So Sarah has such a great team behind her. If you're looking for great health coaching, go to teamfitwithme.com/poundthis. When you go there, you'll get 10% off month one of all packages, plans, and add-on services. And yeah, like I said, Sarah is going to be at the Pound This party, which is Saturday, August 6th at Mad Tree Brewing in Cincinnati. Tickets are on sale right now, but tickets will go off sale in August unless it's sold out before then. We'll see what happens. There are limited tickets available. It's going to be such an amazing day. It's also my 40th birthday. So turn up. We're going to be drinking Sways, which is Mad Tree's brand new vodka soda. So not quite the hangover as you're having your normal seltzers, which is fantastic, and they're delicious. So we're going to have drinks. We're going to have food. Your ticket includes a ton of stuff, including free leggings, lunch, your drinks, your snacks. There's going to be so many great speakers there. Rochelle Froboda is going to be there to talk about sexual health. And of course, we're going to do Q&As with everybody. It's going to be awesome. Lindsay Bonadonna will be there and talking about mental health. Sarah's going to be there talking about nutrition. So it's a day where we're going to like hang out and we're going to do all things wellness, but we're going to have so much freaking fun. I'm just so hyped about it, and I really hope that you want to come. And if you are traveling from outside of Cincinnati, just shoot me an email, let me know, and I can help you with accommodations and stuff like that too. So my email is amanda@amandavalentinbites.com, and you will find the link to get those tickets to the Pound This party in the show notes. So please, please, please buy a ticket. I really hope I see you there. And I'm going to shut up now and then just talk even more with this conversation with Matt. Here we go. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. Joining me again, two-time podcaster, Matt Kasee from Trilogy Fitness Systems. How are you?
Hi, how are you? What's the record for most times on a show?
On my show specifically?
Yeah.
I know at least one person has been on 60 times.
Well, I got a ways to go.
There's two people that have been on the most. One I counted, one I have not yet, but definitely 60. So, yeah, you're on number 2. You start stretching it out. Good thing that me and you like to talk a lot then.
Damn right.
So for people that may have missed the episode that you were on just a few months ago, tell me about you, who you are, what you do, where you're at, all that stuff before we go into some listener Q&A questions.
Yeah. My name is Matt Kasee. I own a gym in Cincinnati, Ohio, just outside of kind of the Oakley, Hyde Park area for the people who are local. It's a semi-private personal training gym. I am a giant dork that wanted to create a gym space that was kind of designed to help people who don't typically like gym spaces, and then hopefully slowly infect their brain make them fall in love with deadlifts. That's kind of my big mission. Let's talk about cartoons and then do some deadlifts.
That's awesome. See, I'm like all like, let's talk about that's what she said jokes in a different way. And I do want to say before we get into this too, so from the last time that we recorded, I came in and I worked out at your gym for like 2 weeks, something like that. I did 5 sessions in. I will say I had hesitation because my anxiety around group personal training, like in my head, I'm like, again, just blanket statement, that sounds like a nightmare to me, where I'm like, oh, because group fitness stuff, it just gives me anxiety. Not that it's bad, of like where I feel like I'm in competition with other people. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Am I being judged? And so after our conversation, I obviously felt like, well, this is a safe space. Plus, I'm always down to try anything anyway. And I'm like, I really, really loved it. I really, really loved the way that you kind of had things structured. And I will say that I did deadlift, I think the heaviest I've ever deadlifted at your gym. And I was only there for like 2 weeks because for me, even though I technically know what I'm doing, I won't push myself because I do have injuries. And so I feel just safer having somebody that's there and it's like, we think you can do this and we're watching you to make sure you're not doing a stupid job. So I definitely felt more sore than I have literally felt in years from working out, but in a really good way. Not that soreness is an indicator of a good workout necessarily, but I could tell that as I pushed myself and other people were pushing me, and it felt I just really, really loved how it felt so good and like such a community. And not only were the trainers, because there was like 3 or 4 trainers kind of roving around, and then there's everybody else that's kind of working out too. Of like everybody was chatting with each other and laughing and joking around, and even like some of the other people that were working out there were like, "Hi, who are you? You're new. How did you find this place?" And like it was just very refreshing for me, because normally like if I'm going to the Y, I'm like, "Don't talk to me. I have headphones on. Don't be creepy." And so this was all, but it was just so like, oh, friendly, and this is exciting, and people are talking to people, and people notice that I'm there, and they're like encouraging and cool. So not only the trainers, but everybody else working out there, what I think speaks volumes about your gym, of just like you're saying, you wanted to create a community and a space for people that don't necessarily like go into gyms, but like, so not only that, but it just felt so inviting, even for me who's literally been an employee of a gym and have worked out in several gyms, but still had anxiety around like, I don't understand what this personal training looks like for me, and I'm just kind of going through the learning process. It was really, really, really great. So I do want to like say that you're just doing an awesome job, and you're kicking ass at what you're doing. So
those things are like the community side, the most that you deadlift, like all, and then the fact that it beat your expectations, like all those things is music to my ears. And I think that's what we do a really good job with here, kind of, patting myself on the back, I guess, weirdly, of we do a really good job of kind of meeting people where they are, of yes, you're working with other people, but it's still for you at the same time. So it's kind of a weird hybrid that, once people kind of experience it, it's a fun community, it's a fun vibe, and it's 160 of the coolest people in the city, I think, in here. And I just love every one of them.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I'm excited to like come back, and because even just like working out at the Y, I think this is my personal frustration with a gym, especially like going to the Y. Nothing against the Y. I mean, I like the Y. Although I think the one that I live the closest to is my probably least favorite one in the city, which is unfortunate. But it's like I can't do any sort of circuits, because I feel like that's the problem with any sort of bigger gym, is because you get up off of a machine or you get up off the bench and somebody's going to gank it. So I hate that, like, even today, there's only 2 benches available, because I'd prefer for myself free weights rather than using machines. And so there's 2 benches where you can do, there's no other like additional space in this gym. So it's like, okay, well, that kind of ruins my plan. So I'm like, I want to strength train. I don't want to hop on like an elliptical. So I'm going to use machines. And so then I'll have to do complete sets, like by just staying on the same machine and doing 3 or 4 sets on like of a leg press, and then moving to the next one, do 3 or 4 sets there. And I personally don't enjoy that. And I feel like that's just a downside of like those kind of gyms, where I'd rather like get up and build a circuit and, do a lower body move, upper body move, do some abs and kind of like, and do it around. But it's like, it's impossible to do it in that atmosphere. So I think it's awesome. Like what you're doing, that you can still do that while everybody's kind of doing the same thing, but different at the same time, and nobody's in each other's way, and you don't have to worry about any of the equipment being available. And even if it is, people like flip around for you. So I feel like you just have access to a much better workout rather than being at the mercy of just what is available.
Yeah, it takes so much creativity when you're doing it like a commercial gym or YMCA kind of thing to be able to tie those things together. And next funny little tangent, my morning guys that we train, so group guys have been training early in the morning, and in their workout, I wrote up their last phase and not thinking, I had a bad combination of things where like all 8 of them ended up in the same little area of the gym. And one guy was like, how do you have all this room? And we're all right here. And I was like, yeah, I'm fixing that for next week. Don't worry. It's like, as soon as I got into that morning, I was like, oh no, what'd I do?
Well, they could have all just started like bench pressing each other.
True. Yeah. Right. Partner work.
Yeah. It's just body weight exercises with somebody else's body.
Right.
So we did have a bunch of fitness questions that I want to get to. I kind of want to start with some of these food questions first. So these questions are questions that I got based off of my Instagram account, which you can follow me at You Can Pound This. And usually in my stories, I'll put little question boxes up there. But if anybody listening ever has any sort of questions that you want to hear answered on a podcast, especially I really, really love people will be like, hey, do you cover this topic? I just got one this past week that really somebody wanted to do a deep dive into PCOS, which is out of my scope. So I'm like, okay, cool. Thank you for asking that. That is now on my radar to find somebody, have a guest on this podcast and cover those topics. So if you're ever looking for a topic or just little questions, you can always email me, Amanda@AmandaValentineBites.com. And so these are specifically from Instagram. But the first question, and I think this is geared towards me specifically, but like we'll both answer this. And I'm curious to see if you do this or not. Of what app do you use to track your food?
I personally do not. But we always have our members when we do it. We usually start with just MyFitnessPal.
Okay.
It's easy to use. It tracks. People can export it and send it to somebody else. So it's super easy to use. So we typically go MyFitnessPal.
I also really love MyFitnessPal. I pay for the premium so I can manipulate my macros more. I know Sarah, who's Team Fit with me, who I talk about a lot on this podcast, she's Chronometer. And so it is a little bit more meticulous, gets way into the more grams, a little bit more specific. But I think, again, it's personal preference because I hate Chronometer and I've really tried using it and I just really hate it. And I hate to be that person that's just kind of like, well, I've always done it this way and I get stuck in my ways. But MyFitnessPal, I feel like is easy. I feel like it's intuitive. I feel like it's like $100 or something like that for the year so you can have access to macros. So I like that too. I know a lot of people use Lose It. So I think that
I've heard of that one.
The basic answer is just find one and try it and just use one that like gels with how your brain works. I feel like it's almost like Apple versus Android sort of thing of like, just pick one that works that you understand.
Whatever you're going to do, whatever you enjoy, whatever's easy, roll with it.
So that goes into the next question, kind of going into, going into macros a little bit. What's more important, hitting calories or hitting macros? What's your opinion?
It depends on the level of the person. I'm going to say calories first.
Okay.
Calories are the most important thing. And then once people kind of get the calorie portion under control, then we can start kind of getting into more of the macro side. But I think it's easier to go simplicity first for just about all things. Mm-hmm. So calories come first, and then we can start breaking down the macros once you kind of have the portions more in line.
Okay. I'd say I have a little bit more complicated answer with that. I mean, I wouldn't say, again, like which one's more important than the other. I'd say that in general, not counting your macros, but understanding your macros is more important than your calories.
Yes.
So I would say that is the more important thing because you can eat, 2,000 calories of ding dongs and you're sticking to your calories and not necessarily understanding what the macros are, which are your fats, your proteins, and your carbohydrates. So I feel like you don't necessarily have to count the macros. I do feel like if you are in a weight loss mode, you do need to be in some sort of caloric deficit, and that doesn't mean 1,200 calories a day. I think that's understanding what your basal metabolic rate is, finding out what your base level calories are, and starting from there, which there's counters online, which are just, again, same thing with MyFitnessPal. You put that in there. It's a machine. It doesn't know you. It doesn't know your body. It's a guess. And even I think as a person, you're still going to kind of guess. You don't really know. And so you're going to have to be a lot of experimentation to find out where your calorie maintenance is so you can dip into a caloric deficit. So I would say to have your if you're going for a caloric deficit, that's important. But you don't want to count your macros. I think that the general thing, the advice that I give that I feel makes things just more easier is every time you eat, just try to have everything balanced. So you want to include a protein, a fat, like your avocado oil, your nuts, or any oil, healthy oils, nuts, avocado, stuff like that. And you want to have your carbohydrates. So it's like, think that, you can get into the manipulation of you want to have this much carbs and this much fats and whatever, and that gets complicated. But it's just like every time you eat, you have a balance of those three things and you think of the macros that way. I think that's going to give you more success than really kind of stressing out about like every single calorie of the food that you have. And like, so if you're thinking about your macros, you're not really trying to configure how Skittles fit into that.
100%. 100%. And those people tend to, you go on anywhere and right now, like carbs are villainized, right? Everything's got to go back to keto and low carb and nobody should be eating carbs ever kind of thing. And it's kind of wild, but the balanced plate approach, our friend Emily Mobley, she's in Loveland. I don't know if you know her. She does great nutrition. She's wonderful. One of the things she always pushes is just the complete plate. Exactly what you said. You want the protein, you want a vegetable, you want a carb, you want a fat on every plate.
Yeah.
Do that and you're going to be okay.
And that's where it's like, I think that, that we tend to really overcomplicate things, especially when it comes to nutrition, because then you go into supplements and you need protein powders. Like, no, you don't. Like, if you need more protein and you don't want to just house chicken all day, well, then you need that. But it's like, it's all, you take it down to simplicity of just having those basic things and don't even worry about weighing or measuring or any of that stuff. If you're just focusing on having more balance and including those things. And if that's your worry at first and you get that nailed down, and then you can start going into, we need to like manipulate this and move this around, because it depends on what your goals are too.
Goals and preferences.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like the first one. If we have a client who prefers more fat in their diet, we'll kind of tell them, lower the carbs a little bit, get more fat in your diet. Once they kind of get the full plate, that kind of whole approach going. Yeah. And then if somebody likes more carb, eat more carbs, do a little bit less fat. So it's just this preference of finding that experimentation of it as they go. Definitely.
Well, I just had somebody ask me, we were just talking before we started recording how I got some of these questions that I just kind of answered personally instead of bringing this to the podcast. And one was just like, she's just getting started and she wants to lose weight and was asking me how much I focused on calories when I first got started losing weight. In this round of it, not when I like yo-yo dieted. And I'm like, I didn't count calories for the first year. I'm like, for me, it was the most important to know what the most triggering things for me were that I had the biggest problem with, which was being self-aware about what was the things that was really messing me up, which was fast food, Red Bull, and soda. Like I was just drinking no water. I was drinking only like Dr. Pepper and Red Bull all day. And I would just eat just an insane amount of fast food. And so I'm like, these things I don't have a good relationship with. And I knew at the time, I'm like, I can't find the balance with that. Like, I know myself. I can't still go to McDonald's and make a better choice. Like, if I'm going to go to McDonald's, my brain tells me, like, well, you're just going to get a Big Mac and fries. I'm not going to go to McDonald's and get a salad, dumb. And so I knew that about myself. So I'm like, I can't really regulate that. I'm like, so I'm just going to say no to that for now. And it was one of those things where it wasn't like, you're not allowed to have this and you're handcuffed away from it. I'm like, I just know that I can't have a healthy relationship with it. So we're just going to pause for a second until I feel better about it. So that was number one. And the number two was like, I know I'm not drinking water. I'm not eating a damn vegetable or fruit. And I'm like, how do I just eat more of those? Like, how do I just get that in my face in a way that I don't hate? So, I mean, I ate just an ungodly amount of stir fry, and I would put like the whole bottle of stir fry sauce on it. Not that I would recommend that, but it was like, but that at least got the vegetable in my face, where I wasn't doing that at all before. So it was like, okay, how do I stop the things that are super bad, and how do I just start to incorporate slowly some of the things that I know that I need, or and I want to find a way to enjoy. And so like that was the big focus for me at first. And then when it was like I was kind of plateauing out and I was like, okay, things aren't moving the way that they were. I have bigger and different goals now. Then it was like, okay, well now I'm going to have to really start journaling all of this and taking a deeper dive into it. So, and again, that's like that, not that my journey has to be the same thing as for everybody, but again, like where we overcomplicate it is if we think that I have to just get started and I have to understand how to count macros. Like I feel like it's just like you show up to like learn how to do, basic addition, and somebody asks you to do like trigonometry, you're going to bail. You're going to drop that class.
Absolutely. And you said the word that we try to teach everybody here first is that you said you develop that self-awareness of it. Mm-hmm. And people don't have the self-awareness. They expect to be able to come in of, oh, how do I go to step 10? Like you're at step 1. Let's go step 2 first. Like you said, find that awareness. And then the other thing that you did is you put more things through addition, right? So you found ways to get more vegetables in, to get more of the protein, to get more of the good things in. Even if it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't perfect to throw the entire thing of stir fry, but that's better than the McDonald's Big Mac and fries.
Yeah.
And you're getting more vegetables, more nutrients that way. And by putting in the good things, the bad things tend to kind of trickle out and happen less frequently. So self-awareness and then pushing in the good things tends to move the needle more for people.
And patience.
Yeah.
Nothing happens overnight. So one more while we were still here on the food question. Somebody's asked, are you supposed to weigh your meat raw or cooked? Does it matter?
Whatever you're doing consistently, that's what matters for it. If you're tracking macros, I personally do it cooked, but you can do it either way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if you are using like MyFitnessPal, you just put in whichever you're doing. Like if you put chicken cooked, it'll be different than whatever. And like, I think that's such a minute thing. Again, unless you're bodybuilding, like I don't really think it matters to like those grams and ounces. Like just in my personal opinion, again, unless you're having very hardcore things. And for me as a meal prepper, weighing things raw is the biggest pain in the ass. Like I don't even, my brain can't even do the math. So I weigh everything cooked just because it's easiest for me. But like, I guess technically you can, again, everybody's on different sides of everything. I guess if you ask bodybuilders, they say it's better to do raw for whatever reason. But it's like, if you are at the level where you're having the food that you want to measure and weigh out, like that's already like you're not weighing and measuring out Big Macs.
Correct.
So you're already making a good enough decision, in my opinion.
Yes.
And then I guess kind of while we're still on the weight loss sort of vibe here, somebody asked, how much cardio should I do for fat loss?
So we push cardio at the gym for heart health and just for general health. It's not needed for fat loss. It helps. It helps kind of move the needle. So when it comes to like fat loss, the hierarchy is nutrition, kind of sleep and stress management. And then we get into weight training, and then we get into cardio as like kind of this fourth tier. Mm-hmm. And if it's an inverted pyramid, the sleep and the stress management kind of build this base. And then we do our strength training, and then we do our cardio. So sprinkle it in for heart health, but it's not really necessary if you want to get really technical about it for fat loss. But we always tell people shoot for about 8,000 steps a day. And then if you can sprinkle in a couple 30-minute cardio sessions in the week, go for it.
Awesome. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that also. And I would also say, like, I think that this general daily movement, like you said, like the 8,000 steps a day, like I think that is going to help you far and away more than just worrying about getting on a treadmill or an elliptical or a Peloton ride or anything like that. I think that if you're just making sure you make it a daily process to move your body and get like, and again, cardio can be, it's so crazy how like walking is so easy and simple and free, but somehow like we won't gravitate towards it. But like you don't have to have like a track or anything crazy. Like just walk around your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like or you know, the whole like cliche, like park further back from the parking lot and take the stairs, and like that stuff like adds up so much more than counting on I'm going to spend a half hour on the elliptical tonight.
100%.
So speaking of working out, and I'm switching from cardio to muscle mass and strength training, somebody says, how long does it take to lose your muscle you've built up if you haven't gone to the gym in a while? Because it feels like 2 seconds, in my opinion.
So it feels like 2 seconds because strength is primarily driven kind of neurologically through the nervous system. So when we get stronger, our muscles learn how to work together to create more force. So a week or two away from the gym, you feel weaker because your muscles are slightly less efficient in that movement pattern. You haven't lost muscle at that point. You're just more inefficient. But after about 3 weeks of a lot of inactivity is when you're going to start to see some muscle loss. If you're still being active, still walking, still doing things, it slows down significantly. We saw this a couple years ago during a lockdown. Like we had people at home doing just push-ups and some kettlebell swings, and they came back and they were pretty much just as strong a month and a half later when everything reopened for the gym, at least. So 3 weeks of inactivity, you'll start to see some muscle drop.
Like, so at what point do you think that, I mean, I know you probably don't answer this. I guess we're just like, guessing here. Like, at what point do you think that you like lose everything you've built completely? Like, let's say you've been going consistently to the gym for a year, you've been doing strength training, and you just like stop because it's a global pandemic and you're not doing that or whatever, or you have you move to a new city and you stop everything. Like, how long do you think that it takes to just kind of like start you back to where you started again?
That's a good question. Speculating wildly, I have no idea. But that's one of those things where people pick it up pretty quickly. Like, we've had people who I've been training now for 14 years. So I've had people who kind of fall off the wagon, come back a couple years later, train with us again, and then come back a couple years later for that. Like, it happens. And they bounce back way faster than somebody who's a total beginner because their body kind of remembers how to do it. They have enough experience on how to do it, so they bounce back faster. But, I mean, if you're not doing it, you're going to feel those strength and those muscle losses after a few months.
Yeah. And I will say, just from my own experience here, that I feel like my own fitness with strength training fell way off from where I was while being a personal trainer. I was very grateful for the daily movement of running around and moving weights for other people. But like, as far as my own fitness, it really fell off, which was very upsetting for me because I'm like, that's just something that I have to kind of keep tight on the reins on. And is really important to me. So like, even when I came to work out at your gym, like, I just felt so deconditioned and so rusty. And like, it just felt like, even though I still have general movement and I still, still work out to some degree, but not to where I had previously. So it felt like, it feels uncomfortable to go through that, like, kicking off the rust phase. But I feel now where I'm at, like a month later, month and a half later, I've just, even this morning when I was working out, like, I feel so much stronger. I feel like again, like that bounce back of like, oh man, I am back to where I was. And you might not be able to see the definition in my body, might not look the same as it was at that level, but I'm like, okay, so I think just the general consistency and getting past that yuck part where you feel gross and you feel frustrated. Well, I used to be able to do this and now I'm here and I suck. And you get past that. Like, it felt like, like generally way quicker to kind of come back from it than, if you just completely start from fresh. So.
Yeah, you're just knocking off the ring rust. You know how to do all the stuff. Yeah, it's way faster.
It's just, God, and that's just like coming back from vacation and you're like, oh man, I just just ate like garbage the whole time. And then you come back and it's like broccoli and you're like, ugh.
Yay.
Well, sometimes you're like, oh yay, I need to eat something fresh. But I think it's like that, again, like, just, you have to just like kind of break through that like seal of anything, of like, once you get off of like a pattern. I think that's really hard. And then I think the whole trick is just to like stay consistent and try not to veer off track, because it's so hard to hop back on.
Consistency is the name of the game.
For sure. So someone else asked, what are your tips to get started, stay focused for someone with body image issues and self-confidence? I mean, I think this goes back to, like we were just saying, of, whether we can pick it right back up again or just getting started. And being started is the hardest part. So how do you get started if you're already very self-conscious of yourself?
So I think it's there's multiple factors that are going to play into it. I think one is kind of, we talked about earlier, but that self-awareness, right? Kind of, if this person has never been to the gym before, kind of understanding, I'm gonna have a big learning curve to learn how to do these things. So kind of having an understanding of where you're actually starting from. Second one would be kind of setting up appropriate goals from that point. Of if you're walking a couple of days, but you've never lifted before, setting a goal of lifting 4 or 5 times a week is probably not feasible. But if we can go to 2 times a week, learn how to do this, great. And then third is finding a place and style that you actually enjoy to make you want to do it. And then the last piece would be kind of focusing on the process of it rather than the end goal of it. When we focus on the process of like kind of learning what our bodies are physically capable of, the people that we have in here that have made the most progress and done the quote unquote coolest thing in the gym kind of embrace that process. They like training for themselves to see what they're physically capable of doing. And then their confidence tends to improve. Their consistency feeds into that self-confidence. And we create this upward cycle by starting at the appropriate point, meeting them where they are, and then having a good support system to kind of allow them to fully prosper.
So how often have you seen, how long have you been training for now, total?
Like 14 years.
Dang. Okay, so you have met a lot of people.
Tons of people.
And then, so in the course of your career, how often have you seen people that they're starting at the very beginning and they show up to train with you or any space that you've worked in and they have those same issues? They're like, I'm here because I want to work on my body image issues and confidence, but I showed up. Like, how do you walk them through that? Or how often does that happen? One, and then two, like, how do you have that conversation initially?
Every day it happens. And it's a hard conversation because, again, it varies for the person. So everybody's reason to do it is different. Everybody's starting point's a little bit different. Everybody's like kind of life setting is a little bit different. We recently had a lady today who she started doing Weight Watchers, which it's fine. It works for her in her lifestyle right now. It fits, and she's done great with it. And I guess they've changed some of the things that group does. But she was laughing. She's like, these are all the things that you've been saying like for 3 years now. I said, yeah. She's like, I have like a little mat in my phone now that just kind of says like, focus on sleep. If you like potatoes, you could have a potato. Like all it's almost like these are all things you've been, and it just finally clicked, right? It just happened to be phrased a different way, and it finally clicked. She was able to put the two together, and she's strong. She does all these awesome things in the gym, and it just takes sometimes a while for those messages to click.
Yeah, and I would say too, just like that. Like again, like you said, find the thing that's right for you or where you feel comfortable with. And that's why for me, it was walking. Like at the time of me getting started, I wasn't comfortable in going to a gym. I had gone to gyms before and I personally didn't enjoy it. Not the places that I was going to, because it wasn't right for me. And so I think I told myself the messaging so much that like, this isn't for me and this isn't the place for me. And I just don't like exercise. I'm just not into gyms. And I was wrong because I'm like, I just didn't like that gym. Or I didn't like that scenario. But I'm like, I do like walking and I do like listening to podcasts. So that's kind of just where I started, where I was like, well, I'm going to just start walking. And at first it was before I got a Fitbit. I would use the like Track My Run app on my phone. And like at first I would just like walk a mile around my neighborhood. So it wasn't like I was going bonkers, but it was just like, that's more than I ever did. I never went outside at all. So it was like, I think it was just like that. And then I think that when you just start doing something and then it builds confidence when you keep doing it. And then I think that you can progress from there. And then you're going to be like, your mind is going to be more open to try other things. And also, and I know that this is like cliche to say at this point, but it is super true. And I have to tell myself this because I do get in my own head of like other people are watching and other people are judging, that if that is, you're worried about your own body image and going into a physical fitness space and you're just like, I don't belong here. Everybody looks like blank, or everybody is this strong and I'm not, and I'm going to attract attention to myself. Like, as a person who goes to a gym and who is a person who has worked at a gym, I can absolutely tell you no one is paying attention to you.
That same theory, that same messaging is going through their brain.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's just like everybody's worried about themselves, and even if you are doing something wildly wrong or whatever, like somebody will take notice and then turn away. Unless you're just, again, if you're at a place that's like full of douchebags that are going to film you and throw it on TikTok, then that's not the place for you. Then you're going to find another place if you go somewhere and they do. And I've heard of places like this, unfortunately, several places like this in Cincinnati where people have gone in and been fat shamed, and by people that are quote unquote professionals, which I think is completely terrible. But if you go into a place like that and somebody makes you feel like that, like walk right out of there. That is
walk
not,
out.
It's not the place for you. And that doesn't mean every sort of place that has fitness involved in it is like that. It's like, find your place, find what you like. And so, unfortunately, like any life lesson, you're going to have to go through some bumps in the road before you find the path that's for you. And it'll just make you appreciate it more once you kind of find your community, you find your people, you find the exercise you like after kind of going, like, you got to know what you don't like before you know what you like sometimes.
100%.
So I feel like it's one of those things. And sometimes I think you also just got to jump. Like, you can't sit there and think about it forever. Because I know, like, when I did like my NASM certification, there was, I forgot what the whole process was, but they spent multiple chapters on whatever levels of people are at of like the contemplation phase of like, you teach fitness. So like, I don't know. So side note. So you teach. Do you still teach at UC, or you're just teaching at Cincinnati State?
Just Cincinnati State right now.
So do you teach people like through like the NASM or ACE or whatever certification?
It's through ACE.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if
they have a couple chapters and all that stuff too. And it's funny, like there's a day where one of the questions was something like, what's the appropriate way to respond to somebody who wants to talk about fat loss? And then the answer was, how would you like me to talk about fat loss with you?
Yeah.
And they're all kind of like, they're kids, like, well, that's like soft. What are you doing? Like, I was like, no, that's meeting them where they are.
Yeah.
That's your job. Like, your job is to meet them where they are.
Let's say soft. What are you supposed to be, mean to someone?
Yeah, you're like those soft skills. And I try to teach, like, those soft skills are what will make you successful in this job.
Yeah.
Because it's like you said, people are more often than not terrified to come into a gym.
Yeah.
Gyms in the fitness industry notoriously is not the nicest, and not the most open, not the most welcoming to different body sizes and different experience levels. Mm-hmm. And meeting people where they are and kind of accepting that is vital. Especially when you said how you do that, you make the leap, but you also have to then make sure that leap is not too big.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
that's
you
perfect.
said, with walking.
Yeah,
great. Hit a walk every day. Build up those wins, and those low level wins slowly it's a snowball going on the hill. It just keeps bigger and bigger and bigger, and you can do more. We have a lady in here who told me once where she was always scared to do things, went to like a little pop-up exercise kind of thing and tried this thing without thinking about it. She's like, I was a little bit nervous, but I just jumped in and said, oh, I've tried these things at Trilogy. I can do this here. Awesome. And like, I almost teared up. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, this is what we want.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like that's perfect. And I just think that the small changes make such a huge difference. And I personally had a client too of a woman that came in where she made the leap where she was telling me she just spun around in her head forever, around and round and round. Mm-hmm. I need to do something. I should do something. I want to do something. And it's like, I think you have to just get to that point where you're just like, well, I have to. Because then you're going to look, it's going to be years later. And it's like, you've spent how much time sitting on it and stewing on it and beating yourself up because you're not doing it, of just doing the thing. And so she did. So I'm like, this is amazing. You showed up. Like, you showed up and you're here. That's huge. And just like even small things for her, because she's just kind of like, when I've tried to work out before, she'll just like go too hard and quit. And then I was just showing her of like, I was just having her stand up and sit down on the bench. And I'm like, you're squatting. And she's like, I'm like, you're just sitting and you're squatting. And she's like, oh, I'm like, you're exercising right now. It's like, you think of like what a squat is something that you see like a bodybuilder do. You're watching people on Instagram of like, if you're sitting up and sitting down, you're going into a squat and you're working your body and you're getting a healthy movement pattern because you need to get up and down off the toilet, don't you? And so it was just like one of those things. She's like, oh my God, like, why have I been thinking it's this one thing and I can't do it, and I've been so scared to start it? And I'm like, no, like this is it. We're doing it right now, and we're talking here and we're joking around, and you're squatting and you're standing up and sitting down. And I think it's just, again, back to the overcomplication thing of like, it's just those little things. And then once you are squatting on the bench, and then like, okay, well, how can we move up? Okay, now I'm going to do it off of the bench, and then now let's throw a weight on it. And like it's just like, and then one day you're going to turn around and look back and be like, oh my God, like look how far I've come. But it's going to take time and patience, and you're not just going to go like from getting a weight on your back and you're squatting at a rack if you've never squatted before.
Those consistent small steps go so far.
Definitely. And so I think that those things too, like, again, those to build the confidence, which will help with the body image issue, like where you're going to get more and more. It's just kind of jumping in and doing something in a safe space. And I was talking about building. The next question we have is, how do you recommend building discipline and habits around fitness? And that's a hard one. That's what she said.
Start small. Also, that's what she said.
Yeah.
They have
No, she didn't.
Yeah, she did.
Says a man.
They always said it didn't matter. Those small. Well, all right. Well, let's question one more time. I got sidetracked by trying to think of a follow up to that.
How do you recommend building discipline and habits around fitness?
Habits.
Yes.
Similar to what we said with the last one. Have awareness of where you are, and set small goals, small process-based goals. So there's two types of goals. There's an outcome-based goal, and there's process goals. So outcome-based goal is, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to run a half marathon, or I want to do a chin-up, right? That's an outcome-based goal. It's accomplishing an end goal. Process-based goals are small things that you can control that help get you to those goals. So it might be eat 3 servings of vegetables every day. It could be go for a 10-minute walk every day. Things that you can physically control and do are those process goals. So setting small process goals that fit into your routine in life will be the number one thing you can do to kind of help build this consistency.
Awesome.
And starting small, working for consistency over perfection will help you keep it in day to day, because no day is going to be perfect. You're going to have to call audibles all the time.
Totally. And I would say too, I think everything comes back to self-awareness of also knowing what things your like behavior style and what things do feel like rewarding to you and what motivates you to bring you forward, so you can be more disciplined. Like, I know for me, I like streaks. I'm a streaker. So I'm like, I like, and again, if I get off of a day, it's like, whatever, you pick it back up again. It's a bummer, but it's like, okay, well, if I've told myself I am going to go for a walk every single day, I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell myself I'm going to do that for a week. And then after I do a week, I'm like, well, can I go another week? And so I think that kind of builds habits too. That's for me. And that's my own personal thing of like, I just like to be like, I'm going to give myself this time frame, and I'm going to do it every day for then. And then I'm like, okay, well, I did that. So yay, I got it. Well, can I keep going? And sometimes it's like, I don't want to. This thing sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. That's not for me. And other times it is a streak. So I feel like that's a motivator. Or I know for like a lot of people too, you want to have that reward sort of thing of like, hey, I showed up every day to the gym for a month, or hey, I lost 5 pounds if you want to be focused on the weight thing, or whatever it is, or I PR'd. So when I do blank, I will, I'm going to go buy myself a new pair of leggings, or I'm going to go get my hair done, or I'm going to do like something as like, are you reward based like that too? I would highly recommend not making food rewards in those scenarios. But it's like, if you know yourself well enough to be like, what kind of drives me in other aspects of my life? Can I give myself those little rewards along the way, so it just doesn't feel like this endless grind till I die? I'm kind of sprinkling in some fun things in there too. And so I feel like again, that's my style too. So I know that's not for everybody, but I think it's just kind of pulling back and be like, what kind of things are drivers and move me forward. And like, I know for me with the streaks, it's been now 10 and a half years since I've had fast food or soda.
That's
like
incredible.
I said, that's what I started with. Like, and again, that's intense, and I would never expect that for anybody. Because remember, I started this conversation by saying, I'm going to pause on this until I can have a healthy relationship with it. And I'm definitely at a place where I can have a healthy relationship with it now, but I've realized in this process, I'm like, I don't need it. Like, I don't need fast food in my life. Like, there's times where I'm really hungry, but I know how to go into a gas station and find something that's more suited for me or be prepared. Like, I've lived 10 and a half years and I travel a lot and I do a lot of things, and I've found workarounds around that I don't need to go to McDonald's for me personally. So but in those moments where it's like, oh my God, it'd be so easy to go do this right now. For me, it pulls me back of like, do you really want to knock out 10 and a half years to get the Mexican pizza at Taco Bell? Is that Mexican pizza really going to be worth the feeling of giving up 10 and a half years of not eating Taco Bell? And it's like, no, I can imagine. I've had it before. I can imagine what that tastes like. Then I feel like having those sorts of things for me helps you like balance and keep you stay on track too. Because I think there's sometimes where it's like, yeah, this is worth it. Like, do it. But like in those scenarios, I'm like, man, I've been doing this for X amount of time now, or I'm working towards this goal. How will I feel about myself mentally and physically if I give up on that for this? Is the risk reward worth it? And so I feel like those things help me stay more disciplined and keep me on track.
We have a consistency tracker at the gym that we give to our members. And this is, they track down how many hours they're sleeping. Did they eat kind of like 3 complete balanced plates every day? Did they get any steps in? Did they do any structured exercise that day? And people love just like putting a little X on each box all the way down. They like their completed sheets. Yeah. So those streak things are really helpful for people because it feels really good to have like a little red X on each of those things to fill out that sheet at the end of the month. And then the last one, accountability buddies. Like if you're doing it with a friend, doing like the accountability of just a friend or partner or something helping you along the way goes a long way with all that too.
Yeah, well, I think that's also, the reason why some people, not all, have personal trainers, because it's like you have that, like, one, it's not the cheapest thing in the world. So you have the money attachment to it, and then you have somebody that you're going to have to like tell. You're going to have to call or text or email or whatever and be like, I'm not making it. And if you do that on a regular basis, like, you have somebody that's attached to that outcome. So I feel like that does work well for a lot of people, but other people just like don't care, unfortunately. Right. So it's like, again, know your own style, but I feel like if you don't have like that buddy that wants to do things with you, like when you have like a coach or somewhere you want to be, or even if it's just like you have not even a trainer, like I know I go to this class at this time, I have a calendar thing. It's not just like, well, I'll work out when I feel like it sort of thing. Then I feel like that also kind of keeps you reined into staying consistent.
100. Yeah.
So that brings me to our last question, which is, how do you know the difference between working out hard and pushing it too hard in the gym?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's more of it's the same kind of that similar experimentation, right? Where it's, you want to make sure you're progressing properly. You're doing the right level to meet you. You want to feel the workout, but you don't want to be debilitated by it.
Yeah.
Because if you work out once a week and you balls to the wall, go all out kind of thing, and you're going crazy in the gym, but you can't go for a walk for the next 2 days, or you can't sit down, you probably went a little too far, because you want to be able to, again, keep this consistent action. Yeah. So in our gym, the way we structure the workouts, we want people to push basically 2 exercises every time they come into the gym. We have a main strength push where right now it's kind of single leg squat variations and dumbbell bench presses on this day. So we want them to push those 2 pretty hard. And then the other ones, we go 70%. Push it a little bit, but feel good with it. And that's enough that they're going to build muscle. They're going to do all the things they want to do without being debilitated by it. So feel it, but be able to function the next day still.
Okay. So, like, I guess, I mean, this ties into, I actually had a friend ask me this question and I didn't have time to give it to you ahead of time about the soreness thing, where she even specifically asked, so it's like, what level of soreness can I still train under? So it's like, I'm sore. Again, obviously, if you're debilitated, that means, like, if you're having a hard time getting up off the toilet, like that, you should chill.
Yeah.
So, like, that's like, you don't want to be like, you know, you need a walker to function. But so it's like, obviously that's too far, but like, where is still like a level of soreness where you're like, should I still go to the gym and work out, or should I sit this one out today?
I think you can go through a fair amount of soreness and still work out in the gym. You don't want to hit the same pattern over and over again. So if all you're doing is like push-ups and dumbbell bench press kind of thing, you're only working your chest and your shoulders all the time, yeah, over time, that's going to cause an issue. But if you're structuring your week and you're doing different muscles or different movements and you're sore from your lunges, yeah, you can still go in and do your deadlifts. You can still go in and do your pull-ups or your machine rows, whatever your exercise you're doing. So I think you can still work through a fair amount of soreness as long as you're not repeating the same thing over and over and over again.
I agree.
You'll tend to feel better.
Yeah, it works it out fast. It's like you're not as sore as long. And I think that's also one of the things, too, of like, at least if you're questioning it and you go and you start warming up and start doing some like movement and not even necessarily going into a whole set of stretches, but if you're just like moving around and getting active and like then you're still that sore even after kind of like, you know, heating it up a little bit, and then probably maybe it's too much. Like, but if it's like, like once I get moving, this feels better, then you could probably still just, you know, get after it. And then it does feel better. Like I know, again, like I told you, like when I was coming to Trilogy, because I deadlifted harder than deadlifts have always been a problem for me. So like when I started with a personal trainer in 2018, I was physically unable to do a deadlift. Like it would like kick my knees out and it would be too much pain that I couldn't even do a deadlift. So the point that where I am now, where I'm not only can do them, but I'm like lifting heavier and heavier. And I hadn't done that in a while. Like I was pretty sore. Like I was pretty sore from that because it's something that I don't really push myself on in the first place because I have a lot of fear around it. But it was like not so much that I'm like, after I warmed up that I couldn't do something else. But it's like, yeah, this sucks, and I'm definitely feeling it coming up and down stairs. But like once I move around, like then it felt good, and it felt so much better and eased up after that. But it's like also like that good sore where I'm like, okay, I'm like, yeah, like I'm working it. It's so hard for me to feel my glutes, and like my glutes were like on fire. And I'm like, this is awesome, and that just kind of pushed me to do it more. But it's like also, you're not going to do more if you don't rest it. And I think this is another topic and another question of like how much like rest periods to do in between like sets and workouts, because it's like how so many people feels like they dink off way too much in between sets, or they just want to just rush to the next thing over and over and over again and not actually rest, where it's like, well, you need that in order to achieve the result that you want. Like you have to just chill out for 90 seconds. Come on, calm down.
Exactly. Take 90 seconds to catch breath, take a lap around the gym, then come back to your set.
Yeah.
Right. You need to have that recovery time in between things. And that's a very hard, you have the gym bros who just want to text and tweet the entire time. You're telling them, all right, you don't need to wait 7 minutes between your set. You're not an Olympic athlete here. And then you have other people who refuse to take 10 seconds. Like, just catch your breath. I'm gonna give you 10 more pounds to force you to slow down because you're fine. Like, you can do this.
Yeah. I tend to do that. Well, I don't do it as much when I'm by myself, but with somebody else, for some reason, I want to go faster. And I don't know if it's like, again, if it's psychological of like, don't seem weak or something. I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I catch myself doing it. I don't even realize like I'm doing it intentionally, but like I will definitely move it along much faster for some reason. But if I'm training by myself, I'll give myself like a minute. And I don't know what that is. That's a neurological thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's that accountability side. It's like, oh, they're watching. This is here. I need to do this. I need to go more. I can show them I can do this.
Yeah.
It's this
I get
weird,
ya.
I guess.
Or just like, I think it also goes into a lot too with people of like, I'm just trying to get this over with. So if I crank, oh God, what a bad experience that if you just want it over with. Jeez, you're bringing in all these horrible scenarios.
I had to drop one in.
Man, get it over with. It's small enough.
Like, I just want to go home.
Oh my God. Wow, your poor wife.
Lucky lady.
On that note, how do people come to your gym?
What did you say?
That really threw you off there. All right. Dick jokes aside. So if somebody is in Cincinnati, like, well, how do they get in touch with you? Work out at your gym?
Yeah, it's
Make you
trilogyfitnesssystems.com. We've got a little email form there people can jump onto. My email is just Matt, M-A-T-T, at trilogyfitnesssystems.com. And yeah, people have questions. They want to shoot me direct questions. Yeah, send them my way. We will answer whatever we can for people.
Awesome. Cool.
With
Anything
minimal
else
dick jokes included.
Yeah, that's my job. Oh, I can't help it.
Yeah, they're there. You have to take
Yeah,
them.
exactly. Well, sometimes you shouldn't. I think you just learned that lesson.
True.
Sorry. I'm not trying to beat you up here.
It's all right.
Well, I really appreciate your feedback on all of these questions. And yeah, if you want to come back, you got a long road to 60, man. So
I will try to climb that mountain.
awesome, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
AmandaValentineBites.com